Hey friends, welcome back to She's At It Again. My name's Tanya, and this morning, real quick before I have to go run some errands, before the bad weather comes in, that's just a few hours away, so I'm gonna try to get that done. I wanted to show you real quick, I had to turn the camera on before I started making this, otherwise I'd go, why didn't I share that with people? Anyway, this is a recipe for, it's a dry rub on a pork butt. Now it's a bone-in pork butt, and it's a roast. I'll show you how big this is. It's about this big. I've already rinsed it off, put it in a bowl, and I'm just gonna make the dry rub for it, and then we're gonna put it in our roaster oven. I'll show that to you in just a minute. But this is so simple to do, and if there's cold weather like there is here, you're gonna love having that roaster on. You can do this in a slow cooker. It's just that, again, as I'll show you in a minute, we wanna keep the fat away from it as it's cooking, so kind of a dry moisture. That sounds kind of silly, but you don't want it sitting in the grease as it's cooking. So I'll show you how to do that. But I want to show you the recipe for this Memphis Style Dry Rub. I usually use it for ribs, but this can be used for really any kind of meat. You can use it on chicken, and it's really good. It doesn't have any sugar in it, and it's just really, really flavorful. I keep excess in a jar in the pantry, but I wanted to show you how to make this. So we'll start out with salt. We're gonna have 2 teaspoons of salt in this. This may make more than what you need, and like I said, you can keep it in a jar in your pantry, and it keeps for a very, very long time. So to the 2 teaspoons of salt, we're gonna add 2 teaspoons of fresh ground black pepper. And that's not fresh ground, but I don't have time to use my grinder this morning. 2 teaspoons of onion powder. And this is all, well, not all of it. Most of it is stuff that I get at Natural Food Store or Good Measure Market in the bulk section in our town. Some of these things, I just refill my jars from our big Walmart. So we also have paprika, and we need 4 teaspoons of paprika. And then our last ingredient is our cayenne pepper, and we only need 1 teaspoon of that. If you need more heat, more spice to your dry rub, then by all means add more cayenne. You could also put a different kind of spicy pepper, dry pepper in there. But that seems to be the best one for this because it really doesn't add just an immense amount of heat, but it gives it really good flavor. All we're gonna do with this is just sprinkle it on that. I'm gonna try to avoid touching this with my hands because I've already washed my hands so much this morning, it's ridiculous. So we're just gonna take this, sprinkle it over the top. Flip that over. Looks like our fatty side. So we'll have a little bit left over, not a whole lot, and that's okay. Get it as much on all the sides as you can. Again, I'm just trying to avoid touching it with my hands, otherwise I'd be wallering this thing around like a newborn baby. All right, so here's the key to what I'm about to do. This is a roasting pan that I think this came with my little oven that I'm always talking about using out in the sunroom. And if you'll put the rack on there, so this is gonna sit about an inch above the base of this pan. This is going to serve several purposes. It's going to keep the meat itself from sitting in that fat and just absorbing that. But it's also going to keep our roaster clean. Now, I don't mind cleaning the roaster. I clean it on a regular basis, but if you can avoid doing it, that's great. But again, it's going to be heating our house up because I'm going to leave it plugged in inside. And most people are going, where else would you plug it in? Well, if you've watched many of my videos during the warm weather, I plug things in out in the sunroom or out on the front porch so it doesn't fight with my air conditioner. So helpful hint for saving energy. If it's hot, plug things in outside if at all possible. But on the inside, if it's going to be cold and your heater's going to be running anyway. So as you can see, I use a marker quite frequently, and this reminds me that this is an 18-quart roaster. So I'm going to put this piece of meat on this. I'm going to start it out with the fat side up. And we may flip it over eventually, but it may fall apart so much that we can't flip it over, and that's okay. Get every little piece of that spice mix on it. And this is how we get it in there. Just set it down in the roaster. Just like that. So if we're going to mimic the temperatures of a slow cooker, which is a brand name crock pot, we would cook this at about 190 degrees if we wanted to mimic a low setting on a crock pot, or about 300 degrees on a high setting. So I'll put it somewhere between 190 and 300 degrees and just let this cook until it's almost falling apart. So we'll come back when this is almost finished and let you see the final product. And then hopefully I can remember to video this when we finalize it by making some pulled pork sandwiches. So if you don't have someone who can smoke meat for you, this is kind of the next best thing. It's truly not going to have that smoke flavor to it unless you use a smoked salt instead of regular salt. And I could have done that this morning, but was I thinking? No, I'm thinking about getting in the store running some errands. So we're going to get this cooking and we'll come back later and show you what it looks like. We are back now. It is almost 7 o'clock. It's 6:46 in the evening, and I started this morning. I think it was around 9 o'clock when I started this. I'm not sure. I know it was right before I ran my errands. So this has cooked down considerably. It's a lot smaller. You can tell that it's got a nice crust on the outside, but most of this stuff on the fat right here is those spices and stuff. And that's the part we're going to take off. So you're not going to have as much of those spices on the meat as you would think when you start rubbing it all over there, because some of it's going to come off. So this has been out for maybe 20 minutes or so on this, and I'll show you this, all the fat that's in here in a minute. I'm just going to take and transfer this to this dish over here, and I'm going to take as much of that fat off as I can, but I want you to be able to see this fat that's in here. Of course, I can't tip it over, but you can kind of see that swirling around in there. Let me see if I can raise the camera up so you can see it. See all that fat in there? That would have been just the bathtub for the roast sitting in there. Not something I'd necessarily be in favor of. But, all right, so I'm going to take this big bone out of this and take this meat off. But you can see how when I pull this apart, let me get this a little bit closer. Okay, so this right here, this is what we're after. Pieces like this, just put them down in here, and I'll take the fat part of it, pick it apart from the meat part. There's the fat, there's the meat, and I'll discard the fat part. I know some of you are out there going, no, mix it in, but I don't want to. We're gonna take that off. So I'll work on this a bit, but I just wanted to show you what this looks like once it came out of the cooker. And I've gone from about 225 degrees to close to 300 degrees this afternoon.
super cold outside, so I certainly don't mind having this roaster on in the kitchen. It's been kind of nice. It's been like having a extra heater in the kitchen. In the summertime, I just can't imagine that. It just makes me hot thinking about it, but in the wintertime, it's certainly nice. Okay, just wanted to give you a look at that. We're gonna come back and show you a finished product once we make this up for some sandwiches. We'll probably have some deviled eggs, some potato salad, some coleslaw with it. So anyway, just thought I'd give you a look at that.